Welcome to e-learning modules for the Webstat. This is module number 2. In this module, we'll be discussing how to do the Webstat Tuneup to make everything work perfectly on your Webstat. The first thing you need to observe is the version on your Webstat. If it's not 1.4.0, go to module number 1. Watch that and it will help you upgrade your Webstat. After you've upgraded, go ahead and log in. The first thing I always do when I log into a Webstat is to observe the time to make sure it's correct. We'll just say for this example that the time is not correct, and we need to set up the time server. The first thing we need to do is click on the Systems tab. Before you can set up the time server, which is located down here, you need to make sure your network settings are correct. So go ahead and click on Network Setup. Once you get to the Network Setup tab, verify that there is a host name. The name should be the name of the building without any spaces. Never have DHCP enabled. Always leave that blank. Verify the DNS domain name is ldschurch.org. The next thing you have to verify is that these two numbers are exactly these two numbers, 8.34.34.92 and 8.35.35.92, because these two numbers have to match up to ldschurch.org in order for your time server to work. So with all these settings correct, go ahead and hit save. Once you've saved your network settings, it's going to bring you back to your General tab. From here, go ahead and click on the Use Internet Time Server box. That's going to make it so you can add a time server in here now. The proper time server to use on the LDS network is this address. We found that a .edu extension at the end works with the church's firewall, where .com or .gov may not. So this is the one we found works really well. After you get done doing that, go ahead and click on Webstat is Network Time Master. We'll come back to this. You need to save now to save these settings that you just entered. After the save is complete, go ahead and hit Sync Now. You may need to refresh your page in order for your time to show up properly. You see that it just jumped from 4:06 p.m. or 4:02 p.m. to 4:06 p.m. That means your time server is now working properly. It should also match the time on your computer within a minute or so. Next thing you want to do is to go ahead and make the Webstat the network time master, meaning when you hit this button, all the thermostats are now going to share the same exact time as the Webstat. The benefit of this is when you have a power outage. Your Webstat comes back up online, everything powers up. The Webstat's going to go out to the network. It's going to find the proper time. It's going to import that time, and it's going to then tell the thermostats what time it is. So your schedules will then work on time. It's important to remember that when you check the box and add the time server, that you have to hit save. After the save, then you hit sync now. After you check this box, you still have to hit sync now to sync up all your thermostats. After you've done your syncing and your time is correct, go back to your overview screen. Back at our overview screen, we notice that everything is occupied right now. It's a Friday afternoon, and this building is only occupied on Sunday, so we definitely want to change this. Click on our schedules. Okay, we observe now that the Sunday schedule isn't occupied at 4:03 p.m. It's also 4:03 p.m. on the Webstat. This shows that we have an issue. In order to correct this issue, click on the schedule itself. Now that you can see the schedule, you'll notice there's several days, including today, Friday, where it's no event. As we talked about in module number 1, no events actually run occupied 24/7. So go ahead and click on all the days that don't have an event assigned to it. And I want you to add an event. Let's go unoccupied, 00, unoccupied, and add. All those days are now unoccupied, and save. Once it's saved, you can come back to the schedules overview page, and you can observe now that the current state starts at 00 and ends at 00. And it's currently unoccupied the way it should be. So when we go back to the overview screen, now that you're back on the overview screen, you can notice that all your thermostats have gone back to unoccupied as they should. Make sure to update all your schedules before moving forward. The next thing I like to do is I like to add a user. The important part about a user is if you don't add yourself as a user, you will never receive email alerts. So go ahead and click on New User or Add User. I'm going to add myself here. Everything with a red asterisk next to it needs to have an entry. So go ahead and make sure those are done. Next thing you want to do is add an email. And choose a level, a user role. In this case, I chose contractor, medium, and make sure to choose enable alarm emailing. Otherwise, emails will not be sent to you. You can choose high and low as well if you'd like, but most of the alarms that you receive that you want to receive are in the medium neighborhood. So go ahead and hit save. Now that you set up your user, go back to the Systems tab and make sure email is set up properly. When you hit the Systems tab, it's going to bring you to the general portion of it. Click on Email Setup right next to it. We'll see here that the server host name is the old church's server host name. The new one is actually just a number. That is the proper number that has to be in every single one of your webstats in order for you to get emails. The next thing you want to do is you just put in a fake or bogus email address. But if you make it the name of the building, woodland@ldschchurch.org, that way when you receive an email, it will say who it came from, woodland@ldschchurch.org, and you'll know which building it was. You can choose to do the same for your mail account ID or just make it the name of the building. Either one is fine. You want to save it, and after you get done saving it, you can send yourself a test email. And this way you'll be able to verify, one, that you do get the email, and two, that you can see the name of the building it came from. Once your email is set up, you can move over to Thermostats. An important part of the Tuneup is to make sure that every thermostat is set up correctly. You also want to observe when was the thermostat last downloaded to. You can see the date here. You can also see if there's a download that's pending. This means there's been a change made in the Webstat that has not been downloaded to the thermostat. In order to verify each thermostat, I recommend hitting Edit. You will notice after you hit the Edit tab on that thermostat that the name of the thermostat will show up here, and this is where you configure all the properties of the thermostat. If the thermostat does not have a name, this is where you would enter it here. You can change them here so they make sense to you. Zone 1 may not mean anything to you or the guy after you, so adding a label like chapel is very helpful. These usually get pulled into the Webstat when you discover the thermostat to begin with, but if there's something wrong here, go ahead and update those. Next thing you want to do is click on the inputs. This is a very important part of the Tuneup to verify that you do have a sensor assigned to your thermostat. By default, when you upload a thermostat, most of the time you're going to see local right here. This means that the temperature input for the room is reading at the thermostat. Well, the thermostats are typically up in the mezzanine or in a mechanical room closet, and so you definitely don't want to be reading that temperature. You want to make sure you choose T7771. When using a T7771 remote sensor, you want to make sure that you set your jumpers properly. If you're only using the sensor by itself, you use 20k ohms. If you're going to have more than one sensor, you need to change your jumper to 10k ohms, and this is how you would wire it up. Here's the wiring diagram for multiple sensors. Keep in mind you can only use one T7771 sensor on a circuit. The other ones have to be an averaging sensor. After you configured your sensor to make sure it's proper, you can move on to cooling. In this case, it's a chapel, and chapels almost always have two stages of heating. So go ahead and switch that to two-stage. Now that you're at your heating configuration, you can change that as well to two-stage. These are some of the other settings you can do if you need to. But from here, I usually go to set points, and I verify if these are the proper set points for this area. If you need to tweak them, go ahead and do so now. But make sure that you never make this number lower than this number or this number higher than this number because it will give you an error. Once you get done with all these settings on the left-hand side, go ahead and hit Finish. Now that you're back to the thermostat overview screen, you'll want to go through and edit each thermostat to make sure that they're set up properly. When it's done, come down here to the bottom and choose Download. You can select all thermostats, or if you just have the one, like in our case, go ahead and hit the thermostat you need and just click on OK. After your downloads have completed, look through the details log and make sure that you get job success on each thermostat. If you get an error, take note of what that error is. It will help you troubleshoot it later. One of the most common errors I get phone calls on from facility managers, we see a mismatched hardware. That means at some point somebody's removed the thermostat and put another thermostat on an existing base. Your base and your thermostat have to be the original pair together. Otherwise, you'll get that error and you cannot do a download to it. And if you can't find the original base and stat together, then you have to replace it completely. So it's very, very important that you always swap out your base with your thermostat if you're replacing it. Now you can just hit the OK button and you wait for a second and this page should update and give the new date and time, which is proper. This means that the download took place. Once you've edited each thermostat and done a successful download, your tune-up on your Webstat is now complete and everything should run properly.